And yes, there are projects we're working with and through ASC. Unfortunately, that's all we can comment at this time.
Okay. Second question pertaining to ASC. How does ASC think they are investing in a DeFi company without a stablecoin?
Well, first of all, we're not a DeFi company. ASC is working to connect us with DeFi platforms. Again, the point of ASC working with Vemanti is to bridge DeFi to traditional finance. So whether we have a stablecoin or not is irrelevant. Having a stablecoin obviously would make things a lot more streamlined and more internal to our products and services, but it's not a necessary or required component to get going on some of the projects we're working on.
Great, thank you. Third question. In the PR with ASC and VMNT, it talked about ASC portfolio companies would be leveraged to help VMNT companies. What did Tan have in mind? What did you have in mind? And what will those relationships look like?
So Alpha Sigma is fostering relationships between Vemanti and various funding and credit organizations who are looking to penetrate and deploy capital in the markets of Southeast Asia and Vietnam specifically through strategic banking agreements. So we have works underway, and but we're not in a position to disclose anything at this point to the public yet.
Thank you. Moving on to the next question pertaining to investor relations. Do we expect VMNT will need more funding in the near future through common stock issuance besides the current S1? How do you and Steve view the current stock dilution with ASC, $2 million equivalent of stock and 10 million cash equivalent of stock, go to HCW? At the current stock price, we are looking at a huge stock issuing dilution for 12 million cash funding. Do you see this as a problem?
Well, regarding the need for funding in the near future, the short answer is no. But however, it depends on our capital deployment and expenditure requirements. Once our first product has been launched with PVcom Bank, one thing I want to say is whether it's the S1 offering or any offering we do to inject capital into the company, we will look to minimize dilution by taking in just what we need and make sure that we price them in alignment with our future projections. Meaning we may do it in tranches instead of front loading everything. I'm a shareholder myself. Everybody on this call is a shareholder. So dilution is always taken into consideration with any capital raise. So we'll time it appropriately. At the same time, our focus for the next 12 to 18 months is all about P&L fundamentals. At the end of the day, everything we do is about delivering long-term shareholder value. So there might be necessary dilution events along the way to get us there. However, there are non-dilutive financing options once you get to a certain revenue milestone, and that's something we'll always consider. And those options are always going to be there for us first.
Great, thank you. The next question, what is your plan to reach a larger investor audience and improve communications to the current investors? Seems only a small group of people know about VMNT, have access to certain people, and not many people, including the current investors, can receive information from the company easily in an organized manner. Currently, it is not easy to promote VMNT to other investors who know nothing about VMNT.
Yep. No, we hear you, and we appreciate all the feedback. And we are actually working on improving our optics and communications. As a matter of fact, allow me to introduce you to Gerard Berry, our new Director of Marketing, who's been tasked with a new marketing strategy for us that includes rebranding and building up awareness to not just the investment community, but also to potential partners and clients of our products. So by way of introduction, I'll let him respond to some of your questions directly later on this call.
Great, thank you. Next question. When are you going to bring back Dan Borders under contract to get the stock out of its current price funk?
We've been instructed by our legal team not to respond to this question.
Thank you. Next question. Why did we include the dissolution of USDV in the current S1 when it was disclosed in the S1A, the amended S1? Do you see USDV as a hindrance to S1 approval?
No, we disclosed that Vemanti Digital had been formally dissolved in annual S1 filing as a subsequent event to our 10K filing. Beyond that, regarding whether it is a hindrance to our S1 approval, we can't predict how and based on what factors the SEC will review our Form S1. All I can say is that we have structured it. We have written such a way to get it through the SEC, and we're very optimistic about it.
Great, thank you. If the S1 is denied or takes exceedingly long to receive approval, is there a contingency plan you can share with us?
Of course. As an organization, we always have a contingency plan to prepare ourselves for the unexpected. We're looking at options right now. Obviously, Steve and I were constantly looking at options, not just here, but also remember, we're doing this in Southeast Asia, so there are potential capital partners that we can team up with as well. They don't have to be U.S. based. So there are ongoing conversations and options we're looking at. Unfortunately, I can't really share with you anything that has not been disclosed to the public. But going back to the S1, we're very optimistic about our current S1 filing.
Great, thank you. Next question. Are there any plans to merge, acquire, or divest, in Parens, for example, divest USDB assets in the immediate future?
We're in talks with potential targets and partners. I can't really go into detail on each, but the potential targets we're talking to, they are aligned with our vision of providing digital payments and lending to the underserved. It comes down to two choices, right? Either to buy or to build to get to where you want to go. Ultimately, whichever delivers the fastest path to revenue is the one we'll focus on. Also, if divesting certain assets brings strategic values to our overall roadmap, we'll definitely consider it.
Thank you. Are there other partners that have been solidified that have yet to be announced?
Yes. It is also important to know that the PVcom Bank agreement we have in place has been the focal point around many ongoing partnership discussions, some of which don't even require us to deploy resources short-term ourselves to generate revenue, since we have certain market and clientele exclusivity in the agreement, meaning that if some fintech players want to operate under PVcom Bank's regulatory umbrella and in Vietnam, they would have to come in under Vemanti. We knew this going in, and we also knew regulation will be the ultimate answer for all fintech companies that in the market of providing digital financial products and services, and that's why we negotiated with PVcom Bank for it to be a 10-year agreement.
Thank you. Since the Telegram call in late January set up by Dan Borders, has anything changed in the expectation of the Nasdaq uplist timeline, or is it still expected sometime by the end of 2022?
Well, getting to Nasdaq is still one of our objectives. However, we'll do it when we're ready and in alignment with the market conditions. We wanted to uplist by the second half of 2022, and it is still possible, but realistically, given the current macroeconomic environment and the sentiment in the equity capital markets, we'll structure and adjust the process accordingly. The highest priority for us to get started is to get started on our joint operation with PVcom Bank, so we can get off to building our revenue streams, which I believe in turn will differentiate us from other fintech players, because the bottom is coming in for a lot of U.S.-based fintech players. We have an advantage here that our future revenue and profits are not U.S. focused. Instead, we're basing our growth around markets that are somewhat immune to the U.S. Short term. As we speak, I mean, Vietnam's export rate is still climbing with a lot of free trade agreements in place with the EU and other big economies. And so we're in a very, very unique position here.
Thank you. These next questions are structured around operations, PVcom, products and services, etc. First question, this is for either you, Tan, or Steve. Please give a macro update with respect to Vietnam, Southeast Asia, and general global liquidity, for example, for VC or for OTC, etc. Then there's a second, looks like statement here. The tech sell-off has been vicious, financials somewhat. VMT sort of lives somewhere in those two industries. So I think they're asking the question, or merely stating that the tech sell-off has been quite vicious, and financials have felt the brunt of it as well, and we live somewhere in between.
Yep. So I'll yield the stage to Steve in terms of all this question related to our operation and PVcom Bank. So Steve, are you on?
Yeah, I'm here. You want to take the one on the overall macro, and then I can handle the rest?
No, go ahead.
Okay.
You can just.
Sure. Hello, everyone. Hopefully, everybody can hear me okay. I mean, with respect to Vietnam and Southeast Asia, they have felt some of the impacts, but not significant. Vietnam's GDP in the first quarter has grown by 5% in real terms. They originally at the beginning of the year were expecting to grow 6 to 6.5%. That's probably pulled back a little to about 5.5% where they're expecting to do it, and that's really due to the disruption in the supply chains and the inflation that's hitting worldwide due to what's happening in the Ukraine, what's happening in China, and so forth. But foreign direct investment, for the first part of the year has increased by almost 8% compared with the same period last year. Vietnam is opening up after some very stringent pandemic restrictions over the past year. It's also reopened its borders to business travel, and business travel is now returning to pre-COVID levels. And orders coming in, particularly from Europe in particular, as well as the US, are still quite strong. The biggest challenge in Vietnam right now is it's highly dependent, right now on raw inputs, for its manufacturing from China, as well as other countries, and it's working to diversify that right now. But that has been the biggest impact, and it's really that impact that's causing Vietnam to probably come in a little under their GDP growth target of 6 to 6.5%. Going forward, but overall, the demand is strong, and as long as they can manage the raw material inputs and have what they need in order to manufacture, even with the significant increase of cost of shipping containers, they are still exporting quite strongly, and so. From that standpoint, it's been good. And the fact that those orders are there means that banks are still lending strongly. And when you tie that in with the fintech ecosystem that's developing in Vietnam, you still have significant growth with fintech, particularly in the consumer space, still seeing growth and seeing strong demand as consumers move towards some of these digital payment platforms, as well as digital offerings that are coming out in the consumer space. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of idea of what's happening here in Vietnam.
Great, thank you. Next question. Harry mentioned that VMNT would be backing the SME loans and collecting both the fees and interest from SME loans. PVcom essentially is there for back-end continued banking once the small or medium-sized businesses earns enough money to be independently banked. Curious if that is still the plan and correct.
Well, I mean, the way that it's described is not how the relationship works. So basically, we're a partner with PVcom Bank. So basically, we are a digital platform that is a sales, marketing, and customer support channel for delivering banking services to underbanked or people that wouldn't necessarily qualify for products that would be directly lent through PVcom Bank. And so we step in and we provide that service, and we through the platform collect those fees and the interest from those loans and share that with PVcom Bank. And what ends up happening is that, you know, typically unbanked customers, the reason they're unbanked is they typically have certain profile or certain aspects to their business that doesn't allow them to be banked under a traditional banking sense. So you could compare that in the US. A underbanked customer would be somebody that might go to a commercial finance company. And in the US, for example, you have lots of banks that own a commercial finance company. And so they will put companies that don't meet traditional banking requirements through essentially a commercial finance company. And for instance, what we call an asset-based loan structure. It would be like receivable financing, where they lend against your receivables. That's essentially what we're doing here. And then when the company gets strong enough, we pull them into the banking system and we pass them on to PVcom Bank, of which we then continue to take a revenue because we were the introducer and we were kind of the gardener that built this company for them so that it could be banked. And it's our way of pulling the unbanked into the banking system. And that even after we put them into the banking system, there's still a trailing revenue stream that we get through our partnership with them.
Wonderful. Thank you. Next question. How soon can we expect the first revenue generating product to be launched, and when do you expect to see this reflected on the balance sheet? Have we begun any UX for any products in Vietnam yet? Testing in Parens testing phase.
Sure. In terms of generating the first product to be launched, we have already designed that product, and we have already shared that with PVcom Bank. They've signed off on that product. We are in the process now of finalizing the loan and credit documents and getting this approved through their compliance as well as the State Bank of Vietnam, their local regulator. Does take time. We don't have a date back from the State Bank in terms of that. We are, targeting to do it as soon as possible, but we don't have a specific time because it's really dependent upon the regulatory framework here in Vietnam. But we meet weekly with them to get updates, and they are working on it. So I don't have a specific time when we would expect to see this reflected on the balance sheet. We are looking to move into pilot as soon as this is done, and at that point in time, you would start to see it reflected on our balance sheet. So we have begun the UX. We've got the design in place. It's ready to go in Vietnam once we have the regulatory approval to do so.
Thank you. There's a series of questions. Sure. There's a series of questions here that are about Vemanti and the micro business aspect of it. So I'll just read them one at a time.
Okay.
The question is asking here for more color on the PVcom relationship. So, for example, it says, where are we at with PVcom? Were there any progress since Vemanti and PVcom signed an agreement? So I guess just expanding on the color you just provided, if there is any additional color.
No, I mean, that's exactly where we are. We're ready to launch our first product. Operationally, marketing wise, everything's ready to go. The only thing that we're waiting on is to get through the regulatory framework, because neobanking is relatively new and the legislation allowing it is relatively new. And so we're one of the first to do it. And so it's really just a matter of getting through the framework.
Great, thank you. Okay.
So we've moved it along pretty significantly from the agreement. We are ready. We're ready to go.
Okay. There's some additional questions which you've covered on, asking about VMNT's role and the synergies between VMNT and PVcom, if there are additional.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, our role, think of it this way, is that we're really we're a digital platform, and we're really a sales, marketing, and customer acquisition channel, and then support channel for them. And the synergies between us are great from the standpoint is that we basically understand the technology and the digital marketing and sales aspect of it, and that we're bringing a lot of the things that we see that we take for granted in the U.S. in terms of the way that we acquire and manage customers online, and are doing things that they've never seen before. And so we synergize very nicely with them from the standpoint that they really understand the market. They are one of the few banks that is really focused on how can we get to the SMEs in this digital channel. On the consumer side, there's a lot of players that are doing this, and the consumer is much further along. But PVcom Bank is a commercial bank. They really focus on the businesses. And of all the commercial banks that we've spoken to in Vietnam, they're one of the more forward thinking in terms of what they're trying to do. And so those two things fit very nicely together, because they're leaning on our expertise in the technology and digital marketing and acquisition area to really dovetail in with the fact that they really do understand the needs, of a commercial business inside of Vietnam, and where they think that they need to take them in order to support them the best way that they can.
Great, thank you. And you talked about that distribution channel. Is there any guidance or forecasts in terms of customers or revenue or anything to that extent?
No, I mean, nothing that we can really disclose under under our SEC rules, but we have an idea. It's really going to take the pilot to build the baseline. So the idea is to get the pilot in place, test it with a small number of customers, and build a baseline in terms of your sales and marketing funnel and your conversion rates. And once we have that, we would be able to build a much better forecast in terms of what we're doing. But we have a rough idea, but until the pilots run, we don't have something that could easily be used to forecast a much bigger pool.
Thank you. There's an additional question here about neobanking, and this is probably for Tan, but can you briefly explain your vision of a neobank?
Sure.
Go ahead, Tan.
I mean, go ahead first, Steve. Continue, and then I will chime in. You still there, Steve?
Sorry that I was mute. I couldn't unmute myself. No, go ahead, Tan, and I'll follow up on anything from the neobanking. You can go ahead with that.
Yeah. So it's important to distinguish. Everybody talks about digital banking, neobanking, but realistically, there are two different approaches to digital banking. It could be digital only, or it could be digital first, and there are distinct differences. Right? Digital only means that everything is completely digital. Digital first means that yes, everything is automated and is streamlined, but there's also a added human element there that needs to be taken into consideration. And within emerging markets, as Vietnam, or even here too, I mean, business banking is very much relationship driven. We want to give our customers the ability to do everything online at their own convenience, but at the same time, the partnership with PVcom Bank allow us to use that hybrid, deploy that hybrid approach where if they need to or when they want to, they can go into a particular branch for personal service or tailor needs to their particular business. So my vision of neobanking for this particular market in Vietnam is that, yeah, we'll take the digital first approach, but at the same time, there's always going to be that human element that's available to our clients. And out of the gate, we'll come up with products. Our go-to-market strategy is basically to come out with products that they actually need, meaning giving them access to credit. That's usually an easy way to onboard clients. And by the way, there are also SME clients winning the wing with PVcom Bank as well. I mean, we've had discussions how to migrate existing SME clients from PVcom Bank over to our platform. So we've had conversations like that. But at the end of the day, you can, think of us as like we're starting out slowly with perhaps, very traditional financial products, but doing it in a digital, using the digital delivery mechanism to bring it to our customers. As we get more mature and grow up as a company, we'll be able to deliver other products in a digital-first manner.
Great, thank you. There's a clarify. Go ahead, Steve.
Oh no, I just wanted to echo one thing is that Tan makes a good point between being digital only and digital first. And one of the other reasons we chose digital first, particularly in Vietnam, and it's a uniqueness to the market. Even though Vietnam has moved very, very quickly towards moving its population online, it's if you think about things that we do in the U.S., it's not unusual for a small business to go completely online and open its account and do everything without ever talking to an individual. That will never happen, at least in the short term in Vietnam. Anybody, and this includes on the consumer side. I mean, if you look at some of these consumer fintechs, they have what from U.S. standards we would consider an outsized customer support team. And the reason is there's still this intense desire in terms of business in Vietnam and the relationship aspect, that even if they do everything digitally, before they buy something or fund something, they want to have that human touch. And so there is this aspect that Tom's talking about in terms of being able to talk to someone. And so we could have gone digital only, but it doesn't work, and companies that have done that in Vietnam have failed. And so we really took a hard look at the market and the way that business is done here. And that's why the PVcom Bank relationship is so important, and why we came at this a very different way than other fintechs that are entering the market.
Yeah, and that's part about customer satisfaction and also risk mitigation strategy as well. At the end of the day, it's all about delivering the right products at the right pricing. And so that, having a direct relationship with our customers also allow us to maintain a very high customer retention rate as well.
Great, thank you. The next question is inquiring about the competitive landscape in Vietnam. Are there competitors? Are we unique? If so, can you name a few competitors?
Yeah, I mean the marketplace in terms of SME financing, in terms of what we're doing, is relatively a new market. There are not a lot of competitors. There are competitors that are trying to come into the market from Singapore in particular, that are trying to come in without a banking relationship, and they're struggling in order to do that. So a couple of competitors that you could probably look at is somebody like Aspire or Validus. They're coming in and looking at the SME market and coming at it from a very different, and they're coming at it from a digital only aspect, and they're struggling at this point. But there are very few competitors right now, but we do expect more to come in. But we believe that with this partnership and the fact that we're the first movers, that we have some pretty significant advantage in terms of that, as well as, through PVcom Bank, we have access in and a friendly face to the regulator inside of Vietnam, whereas our competitors do not have that at this point in time.
Thank you. The next question pertains to cryptocurrency in Vietnam. The question is positioned as cryptocurrency is viewed as an investment asset in Vietnam rather than a currency. How do you both see crypto in Vietnam, an asset or a currency?
Well, you can look at it from two different angles, right? From the user standpoint, investor standpoint, they use that as currency, as an asset. From the official stance from the Vietnamese government, is basically is a class of asset. So as long as is not used as an exchange for goods and services, then they'll take a neutral stance on it.
Thank you. Do you know if there's a plan for the Vietnamese government to adopt a digital currency?
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there've been talk, and that's another good thing about us working with PVcom Bank. Is that PVcom Bank is a state-owned bank, so that means that they work very closely with the regulators and people from the central bank, and we've been invited into those conversations. They understand what we've done, and we're taking a dialogue-based approach to some of these conversations. The Central Bank of Vietnam, like many other central banks, they're looking at this, but they're also looking at other technologies where they can kind of like form alliances or association with regional banks without blockchain, with blockchain, without blockchain. So, I mean, it's on their agenda to look at it, but they have not officially stated when they're going to have it or how they're going to release it, etc. And by the way, if I may, I see a subsequent question here is that is there a need for third party platform to settle Cbdc? Well, except for the USD, other currencies are pretty much jurisdiction specific. The USD is unique in a way that is the world's reserve currency. So a lot of governments, a lot of banks accept the USD, but it's not the same for the Vietnamese currency and other currencies, right? Besides like the euro, the Japanese yen, and the British pound, a lot of jurisdictions just don't accept anything else besides their old currency. So that's going to be a factor here for Cbdc. So even if the Vietnamese government to come out, or the State Bank of Vietnam were to come out with their old version of Cbdc, that doesn't mean that they can go beyond the borders of Vietnam. So we're in a kind of unique position to facilitate that as well. But go ahead, Steve. Go ahead and chime in on this.
Yeah, I mean, right now, I had a conversation last week with one of the leading banking attorneys here in Vietnam. And right now, the Vietnam government is taking a wait and see on, cryptocurrency and USDV and the similar. From the standpoint is that they're really waiting to see what the U.S. regulators do. Really, that's kind of what he says that they're waiting to do. Which is fine with us because our business doesn't rely on it. If we can get, USDV into our business, it was never, so that we could be a USDV or a USDC type business. We're not there to treat it as an investment asset. We're really using it as a currency mechanism to facilitate payments. And so when there's clear regulation on it, we want to bring it in because there's two big problems and challenges that small to medium-sized enterprises face. The first one is getting access to credit. So we want to solve that problem. The second one is to be able to make payments in a way where it's not costing them 2 to 3 to 4% of their revenue, sometimes up to 5%. Is what the cost is for them to process a payment. And that's where the USDV comes in, is that we want to use it as a currency mechanism to easily move funds at a cheaper rate for small to medium-sized enterprises. So us going into the USDV and the stable coin is not because we want to create an investment vehicle. It's because it's a mechanism that allows us to move money for these small to medium-sized enterprises at a significant cost savings that allow them to keep more money to reinvest into their business. And so it's really, for us, a mechanism. And in the meantime, that's again part of the reason for the PVcom Bank partnership is that when we bring money and when our small businesses work on our platform, because we're able to use PVcom Bank's payment infrastructure, we can hopefully be able to deliver this in a more seamless and slightly more cost-effective way, not to the level that we expect to be able to do once we get clarity on how USDV will be treated for currency standpoint. But it allows us to do what we're trying to do, which is to solve two problems for the small to medium-sized enterprise: get them credit and help facilitate payments that are cheaper, faster, quicker, and easier.
Right.
Wonderful.
So on that note, and actually, the one element that a lot of people haven't talked about is how about a stablecoin that's pegged to the VND, which is the Vietnamese currency, right? And so we've had conversations like that with different people at PVcom Bank and also with the State Bank, because think about it, there's also a lot of companies here in the U.S. and also elsewhere that need to transfer funds regularly to Vietnam. not just to pay for goods and services, but also to support their local operations in Vietnam. So payroll is actually is a big requirement for a lot of U.S. companies. So having a VND pegged stablecoin comes in very handy, because then you can do a pairing, let's say USDV and Vietnamese stablecoins, and then we have the know-how. We've done it, so we've had conversations like that. But stepping back a little bit, this all started with the relationship we have with PVcom Bank. We cannot understate how important it is. What having a partnership like PVcom Bank makes it so much easier, much more comfortable for a lot of regulators to be talking to us, and that has invited a lot of potential discussions around possible collaborations around digital transformation. As a matter of fact, yesterday Sunday, I actually had lunch with representatives from the Ministry of Science and Technology. We sat down, we talked for several hours about how to accelerate digital transformation, specifically in digital banking, and how can we facilitate cross-border payments and transactions, etc. So, like Steve said, I mean, at the end of the day, the stablecoin to us is a monetary mechanism to allow us to do things more efficient and more streamlined. It is not supposed to be an investment vehicle.
Great, thank you. That's actually a nice segue to the next question. Tan, you tweeted about Ripple. The question is, what can investors expect from your tweet?
Wow. I mean, that one tweet has had a rippling effect. So we're working with them on cross-border payment solutions. And that's all I can tell you. And now I see you have also another question here about the obvious advantages to Ripple, to a Ripple partnership. Do you want to ask the question and I'll respond so that way the audience can hear the question, Jason?
Sure. There are obvious advantages to a Ripple partnership, but what are some of the advantages and disadvantages you see for VMNT given Ripple's regulatory scrutiny? And why might Ripple want to partner with VMNT other than the PVcom Bank agreement?
We can't really comment on their regulatory matters. To us, that's just short term. What we're working with them on is long term and beyond that. What I can tell you is that they're a tremendous organization and with a lot of smart people who actually really understand the inefficiencies of the existing financial infrastructure. We are aligned with them in terms of working together to come up with better products and solutions for international transactions, especially between U.S. and Southeast Asia. I mean, it's open to the public. If you go and read about what can be deployed over the XRP ledger, it's all there for everybody to see, and then you can kind of like see, okay, what how would Vemanti fit in here, I mean, the PVcom Bank agreement is a big reason why we're working with them. But we're also, it's not just specific to the PVcom Bank agreement. It is a lot more macro than that. Again, I'm sorry, but I can't really go into any more than that.
Great. Thank you so much. Let's see what else we have here. I think that is it for the prepared questions. Sal,
Don't you have some marketing related questions? You have some marketing related questions, right?
If you want to call those out, Tan, I don't see those.
Sure I would like to bring attention to those questions as a way to bring Gerard into the conversation, and sure. Also So Gerard, take it away.
Hey, Jason, can I get a quick audio check from you, please?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
Okay, Jason, would you like to read the first question, or I could, of course?
Yeah, sure. I can go back here.
It's on the screen right now, number 6.
Number 6. Yep. So under the section investor relations,
Correct, I believe. It's right before the Ripple questions.
yeah. I apologize. I don't see it. Do you mind reading it?
Okay, I will read them, no problem. So this is towards the bottom of the page. This is number 6, and it reads, marketing, etc. Is there an established marketing plan yet for the products that are launching? So I would like to answer this question by talking to everybody on the call today about why I actually chose to become a member of the Vemanti team. I've been talking to Tan and Ernie for years, and I'm very well of Vemanti. And more specifically, I've been talking to them the last couple months. And during those conversations, I've heard fantastic business plans, and I've had some great discussions regarding strategy and vision that Vemanti has. And what I've learned from all of that is that the time is right now is right, not just for Vemanti, but for the region, as Steve pointed out earlier, and for those who are conducting business in the region, and more importantly, for the products that we're offering for the market. So how does that all relate to marketing and the marketing plan that I am working on right now? I really think that the thing you'll hear a lot from me, and when I answer the next question also, is that I really like to optimize our focus and communication around our mission and our vision. And it's not just for the 2 groups of partners and those customers of the partners that will actually use our product, as Tan referred to them earlier. It's for all the investors like yourselves. And so if you don't mind, that all kind of blends in to answer the next question, which I'll read out now. This is question number 7. As for the company's Twitter page, is it possible to see the company's Twitter account become more active, often tweeting? The short answer is yes. But as I mentioned before, I'm really about consistency across the verticals we are speaking to, consistency in talking about the company and the products we offer, and consistency across marketing vehicles. In marketing, there's something known as the omni-channel approach, and that applies to social media and communities. And what I'll be doing with that is Twitter will be one of the different vehicles we will be reaching out via, and we will actually be offering our messages across a whole set of platforms. And they will be similar messages, very consistent messages, I mentioned, but we will let the data decide which ones we actually focus on. We will decide, the data will help us decide to speak to you more via Twitter or perhaps LinkedIn, but we're gonna reach out to you in a very consistent manner. We're gonna reach out with a very focused message, and we're gonna do it at a place where you are comfortable interacting with us and you're comfortable reading about us. And so that way you'll be getting more updates from us. You'll be getting a more focused message from us, and it will be there in a consistent manner. So I am working on that right now. As a mature company, I think consistency and the omni-channel approach will be what's best serving us moving into the future.
Great, thank you. And I apologize, I do see those questions now. Thank you. So in terms of next steps, Tan and Steve and team, would you like to open up the floor and answer some of the questions? I know there are a couple of questions in chat.
Sure.
I'm dialing in through audio, so I can't see those questions. If somebody wants to read those out, we'll see if we can respond to them.
I can read the question. So there's a follow-up question pertaining to the PVcom Bank and the product that's currently in test. The question is, will receivables stay on VMNT or its subsidiary balance sheet? Per my understanding, these assets will be moved to PVcom when we grow stronger, but what happens in between?
Steve, you want to go ahead and respond to that?
Yeah, that's no problem. No, they're going to be they're on a subsidiary in Vietnam, and they will be on that subsidiary, and then they get transferred. When they become what they call a bankable client. So it's on a subsidiary in terms of that aspect.
Great, thank you. The next question is around cybersecurity. How will the company guard against ransomware and cybersecurity attacks? Also, will the customer service home base be? Where will the customer service home base be?
Okay.
Oh, that's going to be the beginning.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay, okay. Yeah, obviously we're working with PVcom Bank, so everything we do has to fit into the existing security, compliance, and risk frameworks that they're operating by, and that's all dictated by the state bank. So that's pretty much in parallel with the PVcom Bank team. In terms of the operation, obviously is going to be our Vietnam first. And our vision here is Vietnam first, and then eventually duplicate the same model with other partner banks in the region. But go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, we have to follow the information security structure that PVcom Bank has, but we're going to layer on top of that in that we will have a managed detection and response service. I mean, they call it SOC as a service, where it's basically we have somebody that's monitoring our entire platform to deal with security incidents and security alerts and to evaluate those. And then we'll provide that service in addition to making sure that we train our employees and the employees associated with us through PVcom Bank in terms of what to be looking out for under a typical information security program that you have with your employees. But really the main thing is because we are a digital platform, we will have a managed detection and response and security operations center service that will monitor that platform for us.
Awesome, great.
Yeah. Then the other one is that where will the customer service home base be? Customer service will all be done in Vietnam. It will be done by our team, most likely in Saigon. Though we will probably have customer service also in Hanoi. The main reason for not having one center, and again, it comes down to us being culturally sensitive to the Vietnam market, is that Northerners and Southerners speak, their dialect is different. And I've worked in Vietnam for almost 14 years. People from the North are more comfortable speaking to a voice that sounds like them, just as the people from the South are also. So the customer service will be in Vietnam, most likely split between the two cities.
Got it. Thank you. Another question related to the hybrid neobank structure. The question is, how does that structure improve cost, which is a major element to go digital? I guess the question is kind of twofold. How does it reduce? It seems like reduce costs for not only Vemanti, but also for the end user, which I think you touched on the end user there, Steve, in your prior conversation.
Yeah, I mean, here's how it saves cost for Vemanti. I mean, in order to start up a bank and go through the regulatory framework is a minimum of a $50 million investment just to have paid in capital of 50 million, and then you're looking at a 24 to 36 month period of time to get your regulatory approval. And that's pretty much the same in the U.S. If you go to the bank in the U.S., it's a very similar process. So it's long and a lot of capital is required. So by us partnering with PVcom Bank and using their regulatory framework and their compliance framework, we're basically able to save that cost in terms of that. From PVcom Bank's side is that to build out a digital bank is not inexpensive. But the bigger challenge for building out a digital platform is really understanding how to deliver the technology to the customer. And that can't necessarily be measured in actual dollars. It's usually measured in time and how many mistakes you make and how many things you have to do to get it correct before you finally do. And the fact that we've done this before eliminates that from their standpoint. So that's how we feel that it reduces the cost and lets us bring it to market faster than what we could do if we had to implement or if we had to go charter our own bank in Vietnam, which is very, very time consuming as well as costly from a capital standpoint.
Great. There's another follow-up question for you, Steve, pertaining to how will Vemanti build credit to build its balance sheet for lending, or get credit to build balance sheet for lending?
How will I'm not sure I understand the question.
I think the question is trying to get at how will you build your balance sheet to actually lend the funds to small and medium-sized businesses in Vietnam.
Okay, sure. Yeah, there's two aspects to it. One is that a portion of the funds from the S1 will be used to launch that lending business. But the bigger aspect of it is that we already have contacts in Southeast Asia. These are funds, family offices, private equity investors that have what they call an alternative, investment management arm, where they look at structured financing like ours, where they will lend us the money at a rate that we are then able to turn around and lend it to the small to medium-sized enterprises. And so think of it is that they are looking for yield on corporate bonds that they can't get somewhere else, that they can put on our balance sheet, and then we turn around and lend that to the small to medium-sized enterprises. And we're already in talks with several funds, as well as 2 family offices that are interested in doing this, both as part of the pilot and after the pilot.
Yeah, and this is, also more to the point earlier I was mentioning about like non-dilutive, financing options that we're looking at.
Exactly.
So we don't always have to do, equity financing. We have partners. Once we get things going here at the ground level in Vietnam, there are plenty of partners, including the partners that we're working through ASC, right? They're willing to participate with us to penetrate the SME space in Vietnam.
Great, thank you. There's a question about DeFiato partnership. Is that still in the plans, or is that just a rumor?
We are having ongoing conversations with DeFiato. As a matter of fact, I am going to be meeting up with the CEO of DeFiato in about 2 weeks here. It all comes down to about timing. It's timing and proper market conditions. But I have a personal relationship with the CEO of DeFiato. So, I mean, we're both looking at options. It's not a question of should we do it. It's about how do we do it in such a way that's beneficial to both companies and in alignment with current market conditions and also regulatory framework.
Great, thank you.
And I'm saying this, Jason, as officers and directors of the company, we have to fulfill our first things first. We have to fulfill our fiduciary duty to our shareholders. Is like after the first S1, we are taking a more cautious approach to anything is kind of crypto related.
Got it. Okay. Next question is pertaining to central banks and CBDCs. And it's why would central banks around the world recognize / allow stablecoins as a trading mechanism when they are planning to issue their own CBDC?
I cannot speak for all central banks. But where I see is that stablecoins are pretty much private currency. So you're going to see. I don't think that central banks will accept private, stablecoins. Maybe they will. I can't, really predict what's going to happen in the future. But the exchange, and transaction executed over stablecoins will take place over private crypto exchanges. I don't see that happening with central banks.
Thank you. Those are all the questions that I have, but I believe Sal has some other questions that are in the Zoom chat. Sal, are there any questions for Steve, Tan, or the team?
Yeah, so I got two other questions. One is how much staffing will be necessary to support the anticipated business, and how much staff is in place now, and how fast can the staff be ramped up to meet the growing business demands?
We're gonna structure based on. So we've had numerous, internally we have numerous conversations around this, and the ASC relationship we have in place is very important. That's sort of like the starting point for us to launch products with PVcom Bank, and we are looking at the funding from the S1 as the next level, as the next step in terms of getting off to our P&L fundamentals. But as I said earlier, we're also looking at different options like some of the capital partners that we're talking to as well. So right now we do have enough funding to get to do a pilot launch already, and if we need more, ASC is in a position to support us with that.
All right, and I have one more question.
Steve, you want to say more to that? Is there something else you want to add to that, Steve?
No, that's perfect.
And then I just have one more question, which is there any idea as to what pre-tax ROAs might look like or be targeted for the first product to be launched soon?
That's just a question for Steve.
No, we don't have a specific target that we're looking at this point in time. We're really looking for the pilot to kind of set that baseline for us, because commercial finance companies would be new to Vietnam. So I can't say that our ROA would look like a traditional commercial finance company that would be in the U.S. or anything like that. So we would have a better idea of that once we did the pilot, where we could actually test out the pricing and the cost of the funds to us to see where that would actually be. But we'll have a better idea of that after the pilot. But I don't have a target. We haven't set targets at this point because we just don't have enough information.
Great. There is another question I have. It pertains to investor relations. Do we currently have an investor relations person?
We do, but he's on he's basically a contractor.
Okay.
And we're also looking at, as you know, that there's not a one-size-fits-all person when it comes to IR. So we're not just looking at one particular person. We're also looking at different firms and option media outlets. So, that's part of the objectives that I have for Gerard is also to come up with a comprehensive, not just marketing, but communication, and that also contains, an IR strategy for us.
Great, thank you. The next question is regarding the product and profit margins. Do we have an estimated profit margin for our current product?
Obviously, we have projections, and
we have a range that we're looking at.
Yeah.
But we have a range that we're looking at. But again, we're piloting, pretty much a brand new type of product in Vietnam. So we don't have a specific target yet. Again, we're using the pilot to set the baseline. We're really greenfield here in terms of these type of products.
Got it. Sal, do you have any more questions?
I don't have anything in the Zoom chat.
Okay. A follow-up question just came to the profit margin question. Will profit margin be better than traditional products?
What's traditional product?
What's it? Yeah.
Yeah. LC lending credit, I guess, would be a traditional product. That's what's being asked.
Well, I
don't think it should be. It's not just about the profit margins, but given the current macro economic conditions, the question should be, how adaptive our products can be to be aligned with the current, economic data. For us, it's about coming out with products that's very agile. It's basically short duration, high velocity, and that allows us to adjust our credit policy and also to adjust our fee schedule and revenue objectives accordingly. And so I think what Steve is trying to say is that for our first priority is to come out with a product that allow us to be profitable no matter what's going on on a global scale. And that's more important than the just one what is what's the profit margin percentage, etc.
Great, thank you. The individual said thank you for the response.
No, I guess since these are probably the last questions, I think I'd just like to I wouldn't necessarily say this is a closing statement, but I did want to, because all the questions seem to follow a strain of thought amongst the investors is that one is that it seems like it takes a lot of time to put these in, and to be honest, it does take a lot of time because we are dealing in a regulatory environment. And so while we might have things operationally and technologically ready to go, we are kind of at the whims of a very young regulatory environment, particularly as it relates to, coming up to international standards with the World Trade Organization and up to the Basel standards that banks are typically, held to worldwide. And so I know that there is probably a sense of frustration that this isn't moving as quickly as possible. We are moving it as quickly as it possibly can, considering the regulatory framework. And just bear with us, and we'll definitely keep you updated as we continue to have these calls quarterly. But I did want to recognize that, and I understand that from your guys' standpoint. And then the second aspect of it is that, in terms of profit margins and ROA and stuff like that, we would love to be able to give you guidance on that, within the bounds of what we can do from a SEC reporting standpoint. But at the same time, this is complete greenfield in terms of what we're doing here, receivable financing and things that we take for granted in the US in terms of what we call asset-based loans, which is a pretty well-developed market, is not developed here. These are new to what's going on here. And the regulators, I spent a lot of time with the regulators helping to educate them on it. And that also slows things down a bit. And I understand the impetus for us to get going quicker and faster. Where you guys are coming from, and we feel it too. But what I can say is that operationally and technologically and sales and marketing wise, we're ready to go. It's just a matter of working through this framework and environment. And just wanted to say that and say that we do recognize your guys's concerns and wanting this to move faster and so forth.
Thank you for that, Steve. And also, if we don't have any more questions, I would want to thank all of you for spending your time with us today. And thank you for the questions. I hope that myself and our team have provided you with useful information. I understand the current macroeconomic data can be concerning for some of us. At the same time, is perhaps a good time to step back and take stock of what you have and look at the companies that you have in your portfolio and understand what they're really about. I mean, it's easy. Some of the questions were about IR, and I know it's easy to get caught up with the daily transactional activity. But for us, it's all about building up long-term shareholder value. We're in a very unique position compared to other public companies. There aren't many companies like us on OTC and Nasdaq that we can find. We're focused on a region that's projected by many to have explosive growth for the rest of the 2020s, especially in digital, financial, and banking products. As a matter of fact, if you've been following the news, I mean, the Biden administration has made it clear how important the Indo-Pacific region is to the U.S. and have made plans to provide financial support for digital transformation projects. That's us, right? We're part of that. So, we're still very excited about where we're going, and we see ourselves being around for a long time. And, think about, Steve said that, we were entering a green field here. There isn't another digital bank or neobank in Vietnam. Is a big country with 100 million people, with GDP growing at 7% a year, and with, export growing at 258% for the last 10 years, and is going to overtake all the other countries in the region. We're seeing ourselves being around for a long time and beyond the 10-year horizon here, and we hope that you all continue to share this journey with us. I am about to embark on a 2-month business trip here to foster relationships for us in the region and Vietnam, and I look forward to share some of that with you in the coming weeks and months here. I want to emphasize that we strongly value our investors, and we hope to, like Steve said, we hope to continue to do update calls like this on a quarterly basis. If you have further questions or need more information, please feel free to send us an email, and we're happy to provide. So thank you.
And Tan, I just have one more question, and it's for PR. Will there be a possibility to get a company letter or a CEO letter to the shareholders posted on its website or public information platform on an annual basis?
You know what? That's a good idea. So, I'll get with Gerard on that.
Okay. And then I think that's all the questions that we have.
Great. Well, Tan, Steve, if you have no other comments, we really appreciate your time. Thank you so much. You know how busy you are, and keep up the great work.
And thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak to all of you. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your week. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, guys.
Bye, everyone.